Once we taste the nectar of sacrificial preaching, selfless service, helping others to come to Krishna consciousness, using our life to make their life easy in approaching Krishna, then we become enlivened. Okay, now let's review some points. You remember the mission statement. We make it easy to come to Krishna consciousness. We make it easy to grow in Krishna consciousness in a balanced, organic, holistic way. And we make it easy to distribute Krishna consciousness to others. Okay. Now, the next point, why do they come? You have to think, why do potential customers want to come to your place? Don't get into the mentality that, okay, we're Hare Krishnas and, we have the real thing, so we open up shop, we open up our store of love of God, people come automatically. No, some people will come like that, the very fortunate ones, but if you're going to survive in a city, especially these days, as we discussed, we want to spread a wide net. First of all, for economic support. Preaching needs economic support. Just like you have your tours here, people pay money. You've creatively thought how to utilize the place here. Rather than just sit here, and be isolated Hare Krishnas, you thought how to bring people here and financially support the place also. So similarly, if you're going to be in a city, you have to think about those kind of things. Not only economics, but also just out of compassion. Do we only want to deal with the small group of people who immediately want Krishna, or can we afford, without compromising our inner principles, to cast a wide net, to throw out a wide fishing net, so to speak, for preaching fun and for preaching profit? So why should they come? What do you have that they want? You have to think like this. Why should people come to my shop? Well, what can you offer them? The best food at a wonderful price. That's very important. Number 2, very nice atmosphere. Number 3, you're offering them trendy things that they like. Yoga, Ayurveda. Someone was describing these things to me yesterday as Upaveda activities, near to the Veda. Whatever is popular and wholesome, we can offer according to the talent that you have to draw upon. You put it on the marquee. If someone knows martial arts, why not? It involves discipline and accepting a teacher, and you'll find that serious martial arts enthusiasts, they actually understand there has to be sense control, which is a rare understanding these days. We haven't found such a big audience from things like astrology, but there'll always be a few, and they're willing to pay for that. If you have someone who's expert, they'll have a small group of people who are interested in those kind of things. You can do vegetarian cooking. Once your place gets renowned for its cuisine, you can, and your kitchen is big enough, or you have another facility you can use. People are willing to spend a lot of money to learn how to do vegetarian cooking. First of all, they don't know how to cook at all. And secondly, if they're going to become vegetarians, they got to learn how to cook somewhere. So that's also a great source of income. Now, there's the hidden need, which you don't discuss with them. Their hidden need is that they're lonely. And they've been through so many relationships. They've had so many boyfriends and girlfriends, and they're fried, but they cannot admit it. So that's the hidden need. You base things around that, but you don't discuss it with them. So, what else do they want? They want something to do, interesting people to meet. The strategy we're going to adopt is that we're going to utilize their needs to give them Krishna consciousness. This is the fun. They are needing something. So we don't ignore their needs. We recognize their needs. Oh, you want good food. You want camaraderie. You want yoga, exercise. You want a good atmosphere. You want a nice place to go in the evening after a hard day of school or work or doing nothing. You want a nice place to go. We, the Hare Krishnas, will fulfill your needs. Think about it like that, and your whole vision will change. We'll fulfill your needs for preaching fun and for preaching profit. And of course, in the process of fulfilling your needs, we aim somehow or other to introduce you to Krishna consciousness. Now, let's get into some mechanics. We discussed basically already the schedule. That instead of getting trapped into direct or indirect preaching, which one, why not do both? In that way, you can have your place full of people every day of the week. There'll be something going on. The last thing we want is an empty place, a closed place, 3, 4, 5 nights of the week, and people just coming on Sunday or one other night. Oh, that doesn't make sense economically, or it doesn't enliven us as preachers. We want to see people coming every night as much as we can handle while preserving our own spiritual life. We want to see the place jumping. So a good schedule is that maybe 2 or 3 nights a week you have the Hare Krishna nights. Sunday you have your normal Sunday festival. In some places we call it the Krishna Fest. And then another night of the week you can have a Bhagavad Gita seminar. And then 3 other nights you can have the indirect, yoga especially. You can have Ayurveda, all these kind of things that people are interested in. And use that to get people in the door, first of all, to help support the place financially. And secondly, you'll find, as we have found, that after some time, a certain percentage of those who just come for yoga will start to work up their courage and come on the Krishna nights. It always happens. And in fact, you'll even get some wonderful devotees out of people who just came for yoga or Ayurveda or this or that. Not everyone, but you'll get some gems that way. And I've done surveys. I always ask a lot of questions. Anyone who deals with me knows I always ask them questions about their life. What are they doing? What do they think? So, you'll find that a good percentage, if you start preaching like this, you'll find anywhere from 33% to 50% of your dedicated devotees first started coming to your center with no intention of having anything to do with Krishna consciousness. That should tell you something about how society is today. 33% to 50% would never have dreamed they would be Hare Krishnas. There's one couple that runs one of these centers in New Zealand, and they first came, their contact with Krishna consciousness was first coming to one of these centers. And the lady of the couple told me, as they approached the place, she turned to her husband and said, "Is this a Hare Krishna place?" No, it's called the Loft, but I don't know. Could it be a Hare Krishna place? It's not too late for us to turn around and forget it. But anyway, they came inside. So now they are, doing very nicely preaching. They have they have their own place like this. So it also gives a chance for career-minded, professional people to get into Krishna consciousness, and they can pretend to themselves they're not really getting into it. That's very important. You see, a career-minded person, highly placed in the university, they have career goals, they just can't readily admit to themselves that they're going to be a Hare Krishna, even though they're interested. So you have to give them an excuse. I don't know if you can tune into this psychological technique. You have to give people excuses. It's very important. Can you understand what I'm saying? People like having excuses to do something. Now, I'm not becoming a Hare Krishna. I just go there for yoga. And it's very important because they can explain it like that to their family and friends. Don't think that everybody is like a rugged individualist these days. No, it's not like that. People are, although Kadamba Kanana Maharaj and Pari, what's his name? Parivida. They're explaining to me, how the Dutch are all individualists and the Germans are very regimented. So, regardless of those national characteristics, you'll find, if you travel the world and you know what happened in the world 20 or 30 years ago, you'll find that people are much more peer conscious. They're much more conscious of what their friends and society think than back in the good old hippie days when the fun thing was just to rebel. I remember, during my university days, which was during the countercultural times, if you weren't a hippie, you were a freak. If you were normal, you were a hippie. If you weren't a hippie, you were just a weirdo. You were strange. So that's the way it was back then. Everybody was rebelling. That was the normal thing. Don't trust anybody over 30. Give peace a chance. Love one another. Hug one another. And on it went. Stay high forever. Everybody was like that. But now it's not so. The economic pressures are so intense now. Job competition is so intense. So people really, an intelligent, competent person, the kind of people we want to attract to Krishna consciousness, because we need such services for Lord Chaitanya's mission, they are not going to be able to envision, to see for themselves a future of being detached from society completely. It's just not the flavor of the yuga right now. People want to see a place for themselves within the society. They're not about to be monks or nuns. That's what they think at first. So it's very important to give them a psychological excuse why they're dealing with devotees. Very important. Don't underestimate this. How many times have some of you heard from people? Yeah, well, the Hare Krishnas, I like their food. That's the excuse, yeah. Yeah, I like they're great cooks. Everyone needs some kind of psychological excuse to make their life easy. So, you're going to give them an excuse. We have nice seminars, we have yoga classes, we have nice food. That's what you really want, right? Yes, that's what I really want. You don't want anything else, right? No, I don't want anything else. You don't want to become a devotee. Nah, I would never think of that. And you play the game. The expert preacher plays the game, You don't say, I know you're lonely, you're suffering. Dukkhalayam Shasvadam. No, you play the game with them. Oh, everything's great with you, huh? Yeah, had a nice weekend, huh? Yeah. Let them play the game for a while. Give them an excuse while they're building up their courage to be around devotees. And that's what they're doing on the sly. How do you translate on the sly into French or Dutch? On the sly. On the sly, S-L-Y. Who can say it a better way? On the sly means clandestinely or secretly. That's Deutsch. Dutch. They're doing it without admitting it to you or even themselves. Without admitting to you or themselves, they're getting accustomed to Krishna consciousness in a way that they can justify to their conscious self. In other words, don't threaten people. Let them live a bit of a little lie. I know you'd never want to be a Hare Krishna. Of course, I'd never want to be a Hare Krishna. I know that your material goals are completely attractive to you. Of course, my material goals are completely attractive to me. It's not so. I know that you have so many friends and girlfriends and boyfriends. Oh, yes, of course, I'm so popular. That's what people like to think of themselves. Don't threaten that. I know you have so many important things to do. Yes, of course, I have school, job, so many things. I must travel. But underneath it all, in a way that they'll not admit to you, nor will they admit to themselves even, they're interested. What's going on here? Could I really be like these people? I'm lonely. I'm suffering. I'm fried. I've done it all already. I'm 19 and 20, and I've just done everything I can do for the rest of my life. I've drank. I've smoked. I've crammed my life with relationships. I've been passionate for men, women, tomatoes, carrots, whatever. I've tried everything. That's the way it is these days. Really, I'm telling you the realities, I'm lonely. It hasn't worked for me. That's what they're thinking inside. So, therefore, they're attracted to you. They're attracted to the atmosphere, but they're not going to admit it at first. These are not the hippie days, where someone just walks in. Wow, this is it. Stay high forever. Can I shave up right now? It's just not like that now. Society is very intense these days. Just with this European Union thing, there's so much economic and political pressure to be a part of this mundane reality. And no one's rebelling. Everybody's accommodating. Everybody's, playing the social roles. So don't expect people to have such great courage and, we say in English, backbone. How would you say that in? Huh? What do you mostly speak here, French or Dutch? French? Most everyone speaks French, huh? Dutch. All right. All right. How do you say, someone with backbone? How do you say that in French? And in Dutch, how do you say it? Okay. All right. Someone who's got the courage to say, I don't care what everybody else does. I know what I want. I'm going to do it my way, no matter what anybody else does. Those are rare persons these days. But Prabhupada built his original movement around those kind of persons. They were all like that. All the original Hare Krishnas were like that, for the most part. I mean, you had a few normal people. And probably most of those normal persons were Indian. Therefore, I remember being a new devotee in New York in 1973, watching our Gopal Krishna Maharaj, who was a householder then. He would go to his corporate job every morning after the full morning program. So and there was also someone named Atreya Rishi. He was an accountant at an international accounting corporation. You had a few of those types. But generally everybody else was just, totally countercultural, down with society, down with the government, And Prabhupada captured all those persons. But if you're looking for those kind of people today, you're going to be waiting a long time. Doesn't mean they don't exist, but there's so few. Now, what about the rest of the population? Are we going to ignore the rest of the population just waiting for these extreme individuals who will go their own way no matter what? No. On the other hand, it's also true that people are more individualistic in a more socially normal sense these days. They don't want to be part of any kind of organization, any kind of regiment. We discussed this the past days. During the countercultural days, when ISKCON was born, people, although they were extreme individualists, they were willing to unite in an organization for an idealistic purpose. That's the big point. Now, spirituality is your own affair. Why should you practice spirituality in an organization? Why does spirituality have to have management? That's the mood now. So you've got to recognize that in your preaching. And the first thing you do is let people have an excuse. Give them some space to live a bit of a lie. So you create an atmosphere where they can come and hang out, hang out. How do you say that in French? Hang out. You know, there's a word. You know what it means? Hang out means just relax and just. And Dutch, you can translate it to hang out, kill time. That English expression is kill time. Chill out is the modern slang. So we're going to give them a place where they can do that and gradually get a taste for associating with devotees. Now, how do the devotees act at this place? They are experts at being hosts. I've never, even in my Maya years, I never frequented pubs or bars or whatever you call them here. But, people like going to places where there's like somebody at the pub who knows them. Hey, how you doing tonight? Will it be more of the same? Oh, yeah, the same thing. Okay. How's work? And the people have their spots, their cafes, their pubs they go to, and they feel comfortable there. They know the guy who's running the place. He makes them feel comfortable. They bring their friends there. Very important. People tell their friends, why don't you come to my place tonight? I'm going to show you where I hang out. Come to my cafe. This is the kind of feeling you want out of the people. Come on over to, the loft or whatever you want to call it. This is my kind of place with my kind of people. You're going to like it there. The food is great. Yeah, I think it's got something to do with the Hare Krishnas, but they're different Hare Krishnas. They don't bother you. They let you do their thing. And they're nice people to talk to if you want to. They've got yoga there, Ayurveda, all sorts of things. And hey, if you really want to find out what the Krishna freaks do, you can go on a Sunday, They have their jumping, they're dancing. So that's the kind of response you want. Therefore, we get to down the bottom, a very important point. Whose place is it? Thanks so much. Whose place is it? Now, we may have discussed this very briefly, but it's a very important point. We must go over it again. The big mistake that so many Hare Krishna urban centers make is it's a Hare Krishna place. And when people walk in, they feel that they're walking into somebody else's world, controlled by somebody else. And the devotees had that attitude too. This is our place, and we're inviting the guests to our place. And our place is going to be comfortable for us. And we're going to invite the guests who have to get accustomed to our place and the way we see things. That's not the way to do it. I remember now, we discussed briefly how a good business person who owns a shop or enterprise always thinks, how do the customers see? What do the customers want? And designs the whole establishment in that way. Not that you're opening up a shop and you go around and ask all the staff, how do you like it? What would you like the place to be like? No, you don't ask the staff. You do some market research and you find out, what do the customers want? What do the customers expect? And you get excited about what the customers want. That's what Vaishyas do. They get excited about, the customer's needs, the customer's desires. So for Krishna, we can do these things. When the people come to our preaching center, they should feel ownership. If you can get this point done, then you're on the way to victory. They should come to your place thinking, it's our place. This is my cafe. This is my hangout place. This is my scene. And I feel so comfortable that I'm going to tell all my friends about it. That's what you want. Word of mouth to spread. Hey, my cafe is really great. Vegetarian food, nice people. Why don't you come? I'm going to take you there sometime. The astonishing thing that's very wonderful to see is this is the kind of place devotees can bring their parents to, and their parents love it. Parents consider it to be neutral ground. Very important. So, ownership. The people coming should feel it's their place. That means the whole place has to function in terms of fulfilling their expectations while giving them Krishna. As soon as it's the Hare Krishna place and the people feel that they're going to someone else's world, there's a barrier up. That's fine for temples. Temples, the deity is outright the proprietor in all senses. But you want, when the people come to your preaching center, that they feel comfortable enough to call it their place. Just like they say, this is my pub. You call them pubs here? Yeah. Huh? Yeah. Where people go to drink, Yeah. So, it's cool to have your cafe, your pub, Yeah, this is where I hang out. Meet me at my place, my cafe tomorrow night, like that. You want them to feel that about the Hare Krishna place. Okay. Now, what kind of... this is what I was going to say. Very important. If it's going to be their place, you can't have the facility filled with lots of devotees. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but non-devotees can sense when there's a room full of devotees, because devotees are so different, and they actually feel in the beginning uncomfortable unless they're abnormally saintly. Have any of you ever been a guest before as a non-devotee in a room full of devotees? Yes. Charnarenu can tell you here. She was the only guest at one of my preaching programs at one of these places. And they were like, how many devotees there? 15. So I spent, since she was the only guest, I just gave her a private lecture for an hour and a half while all the other devotees were watching. Normally I wouldn't do that, but I realized that she was maybe not an ordinary person most of the time. And so, but it was, I knew it was highly intimidating for her. I knew that. But I figured I'll just use that intimidation to get someone who, at least materially, was supposed to be intelligent, going for PhD and all that. Use that to get her to think about some things very deeply. So, but generally I would never do that. So the point is that if you have lots of Hare Krishnas in the place, most people get a little shy and, introverted and, they probably, here in Europe, they don't say these things to you in your face, right? They just don't come back again. Even if they're interested, because it's just too much, Devotees are powerful. So if you've got your place loaded up with devotees who are all waiting to preach to the guests. Do any of you know how that feels to be on the receiving end of that? When you were coming to Krishna consciousness and there was a room full of Haris ready to, pounce upon you? Any of you been through that? Yeah, okay, understand you're the rare souls who could make it through that. Most people aren't that fortunate. So this is my point. We want to be compassionate to reach out to those who aren't immediately fortunate. The persons who, at first just think, this is strange. I don't know if I could handle this. I'm tired of the material world, but I'm not ready for this. Persons like me, who when I first saw devotees on television, I said, forget it. They're nuts. They're crazy. No way. There are a lot of people like that out there. So, the best thing to do, I found, this is my policy, you can meditate on it in your own way, I always limit the number of Hare Krishnas who can be at the preaching center. So that the people feel this psychological ownership. And it's not easy to get devotees to understand this point. Because as soon as the preaching starts to become a little successful, people start coming, then the Hare Krishnas all want to swarm into the place for preaching. Hey, I hear there's great preaching at your place. Can we come? Can we talk to the guests? As soon as they walk in the door, can we tell them about the 10th avatar and Jiva Tattva, Vishnu Tattva, Shakti Tattva. Hare Krishnas, they're always ready to, get on a high seat and, but you don't understand about the Yuga avatar. Persons, what's a Yuga avatar? Anyway, you don't understand about it. So, Hare Krishnas, they like to be evangelical, They like to get fired up and, pour the fire on the people. And when you're a Hare Krishna, you want to feel superior, So, therefore, you have to show your stuff. We say in English, show your stuff to the people who come in. I'm a Hare Krishna, you're not. You thought we were strange, didn't you? You don't know about all this knowledge we have. Now you've come to our place. We're going to get you. You finally come to our place. We're going to teach you so many things you don't know. That's the attitude, So I just got tired of it, trying to have seminars, with newcomers, and then there's some Hare Krishnas in the group, and, they always want to ask questions. Now, Maharaj, why don't I explain to them about, how like Krishna expands into Balaram, or they want to show off, really. And then they want to preach to the people, because, okay, many times they're householders or brahmacharis who, in their normal service or home situation, they don't have a chance to preach. So they're thinking about, okay, I'm going to that loft, I'm going to that urban preaching center, it's my only night of the week, I'm going to give it to the karmis, I'm going to show my stuff, They're all pent up, and they sincerely want to, reach out to the people. So, they have one night a week, and so they just grab some guest and start pouring it on them, Your Krishna consciousness, it's the best thing. You really got to get into it. I mean, when you start understanding the philosophy about Shakti Tattva, Vishnu Tattva, Jiva Tattva, it's just amazing. And the guests are kind of like, yeah. It happened to me. I won't tell you the circumstances because it's too embarrassing. But it happened to me when I was my first time to the temple. I'll tell you briefly. As long as these tapes are not circulated. I had finally given up my 6-month determination not to go to a temple. And I started going about 3 Sundays in a row. And so then I was really getting into Krishna consciousness. But at the time, being a normal young man of the age of 21 or something, I had an associate. That was this was about February of 73, and in December of 72, just 2 months before, I had given my associate an engagement ring and all that kind of stuff. So now it's February of 73, 2 months later. So I was figuring, well, if I'm going to get into Krishna consciousness, she's got to get into it too, and it's the best thing, and she was very queasy, very uneasy about it. I said, that's okay, I'll bring her to the Sunday feast. When she tastes that prasad, when she sees the wonderful people, she'll get into it, So we sat down for the Sunday feast, and it was her first time to the temple. And now I know things don't happen like this so much these days, but still you can subtly see the same thing is there. So I sat down with her, and then a super brahmachari sits in front of us. Back then Sunday feasts by Prabhupada's order consists of 13 preparations. Prabhupada sent letters around to all the temples saying you cannot have a Sunday feast without 3 kinds of sabji, not only sweet rice, but melpura also. We had a whole list. 13 things you had to have if you're going to have a Sunday feast. So, Sunday feasts were like, this feast we had yesterday, that would be like 1/3 of a Sunday feast. So there was something. So there we are enjoying the feast, and Super Brahmachari sits down in front of us. I still thank him to this day. But anyway, it's my godbrother, Atindriya. Anyway, for whatever reason, I guess Krishna was using him, but he sat down. So, what is the nature of this relationship? So, the girl starts just like, women have this radar, like, ooh, this could be the end, I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, oh yeah, whatever, it's just all part of being a Hare Krishna. You talk like that, I didn't realize she was freaking out. She was really getting into state of shock. So, I obviously wasn't meant for that ashram. So he just sat in front of us like that and was saying like that. So, what is the nature of this relationship? And I just said, well, this is my fiancée. I'm introducing her to Krishna consciousness. And, why do you have this relationship? I wasn't even mindful of what the girl was going through. I was just looking at him, just responding. Well, we care for each other. We love each other. And it's not love. It's lust. And then at that point I looked out of the corner of my eye and, I just, ooh, boy. So then he went on. He said, haven't you read Prabhupada's books? We've heard that you've read Prabhupada's books 4 hours a day for 6 months before you even came to the temple for the first time. What do Prabhupada's books say about this? Haven't you read about sense gratification? I said, yes, I know. I read all that. But, it's different. We really care for each other. And you are exploiting her. He just went on and on like that. I kept trying to defend myself. No, you don't understand. We really care for each other, this and that. See, she has an engagement ring, and we're being respectable. It's all illusion. You're just using her for sense gratification. All of a sudden, she just gets up and starts running out the temple. It just got up and ran, up the stairs, out the front door. Of course, I followed, I was running after her, and and so I finally, she was a fast runner, so it took me about 2 city blocks to catch up with her. After 2 streets, I caught up with her, and she's crying, of course, the tears weapon. So she's crying. I finally catch up with her. The first question is a stupid question. What's wrong? As I said, it wasn't meant to be my ashram. So she's just crying. I'm just crying, thinking of all the good times we had and how it's going to end. So I said, end? It'll never end. Why are you worried? Inside I was thinking, I'm tired of this. But being a man, you don't say that, Don't worry, it'll never end. But inside I was thinking, this is nuts. I've had enough of this. So anyway, these days, whenever I meet that devotee, I actually thank him because I believe Krishna used him. But still, it's not the thing you're supposed to do. So, naturally, it doesn't happen to such an extreme like that these days, but still it's there subtly. And my point is, even the subtle manifestation of that's enough to turn people off. Therefore, I always limit the amount of devotees that can be present at a preaching center meant for cultivation. The less devotees you have, the better, so that the people can feel they're free to talk to each other, they're free to establish relationships with each other, and the devotees are kind of in the background, and then the devotees are expert to start building relationships at the right time. It's like watching a preparation on the stove and judging when it's done. So, therefore, the devotees stay in the background until they see that someone is, at the right moment to build a relationship with. So, Now, what to do if you have a lot of older devotees in a city and there's no other Hare Krishna place? I would suggest you have nights which are meant just for the already established congregation. But if you try to mix the two, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. Those who've been well established in Krishna consciousness have different needs. They want association amongst other devotees who are established. They want to talk about ISKCON, shop talk, what's the GBC over in North America doing, and all these things that newcomers couldn't care less about, And I've seen it so many times how you mix the older devotees with the newcomers, and they're just two different worldviews, especially, due to problems our society has had. Many times older devotees are cynical. Cynical, word in French or Dutch? Cynical, they've sometimes been mistreated, or they've mistreated others, or they've abandoned their vows, and so they impart this kind of mood to the newcomers, which you don't want. So, of course, we don't want to neglect the older devotees. Therefore, if you have older devotees in the area, it's best to have a separate night for Sangha for the established congregation. You just can't mix the two. You want to capture that enthusiasm and freshness when people first contact Krishna consciousness and utilize it for Prabhupada's pleasure without having to turn your back on the older devotees. So therefore you have to have a separate scene for dealing with older devotees. They have different needs. So generally in a big place, let's say if the whole center was about twice the size of this room, I would limit the number of devotees present to 5. And that means that these devotees really have to be dedicated to serving the people. And so what I recommend is that at every step, whenever a guest wants something, they have to approach a devotee. If they want prasad, they have to go to a bain-marie. A bain-marie, you have that one? Yes, what do you call it? Aubin-marie. Aubin-marie. That's French? Okay, Aubin-marie. And the devotee is waiting behind there, serving them and building a relationship as serving. Oh, how are you tonight? Oh, what will it be tonight? Like that. How was your day? This is important for people. This is the beginning of a relationship. Just little things like that. So you want them to contact a devotee for getting prasad, or maybe the devotee serves them at a table. Even if they want some gift item, they should approach a devotee, because more than making money, you're interested in building relationships. This point has to be understood. Don't let them have any excuse to avoid association with devotees. As we said before, don't set them in front of a TV to watch a video. Okay, here's the video of the Johannesburg Rath Yatra. Watch it. It'll be blissful. Okay, we'll see you in a half hour. No, don't do that. Whatever they do with a devotee, but the devotee is very expert and skillful, staying in the background as a host, like a facilitator. And because there's very few devotees present, the people feel, this is my place. We are the dominant force. You want them to feel that way. Don't be afraid of it. We are the dominant force in this place. Let the guests feel that. And then you're in the background watching. This one's been coming 3 nights. This one's coming around to yoga for 6 months and starting to question. And then you present yourself. You can start sitting at the tables with them as they take dinner. And because you're dressed like them, they don't feel threatened. And you'll find that some people who just come on the indirect nights, after many months, work up enough courage to say, what goes on here on Sundays? Maybe I should give it a try. And then the devotee can say, I'm the same person, you'll find here on Sundays, I'll just be dressed differently, and we'll be doing different things, but you're welcome. I mean, you know me. I've been your yoga teacher for 6 months, there's nothing strange about me, in other words. So come on Sundays. And you'll find that people will do that. They'll start to cross over, which is very good, because you want to get as many people as possible to have some connection with Krishna consciousness. And remember also the important point we discussed yesterday. in this intense period of Kali Yuga, you won't find it to be sufficient that people just come one day a week. It won't work. Maya is so intense, television, internet, so many sense gratificatory overloads at every moment. So therefore, you've got to get them. The ideal is 3 times a week to come by. Then you can make progress. Now, how are you going to get somebody to come by 3 times a week? You've got to offer something they need. So we talked about offering them the prasad. They want to eat. They have to eat dinner somewhere. Camaraderie, association, things to do, people to talk to. They're happy if they can come to your cafe and talk to other non-devotees. And let it be. Gradually, they'll come around to wanting to talk to you. So, this is very important that you build up a sangha of people more than once a week. People are too bombarded with stimuli these days. Now, make sure we cover all the points here. We discussed about lowering the cultural barriers in terms of dress, language. You know how Hare Krishnas have their own lingo, which no one can understand. So much of the Hare Krishna English lingo is from the hippie days, and even current English speakers don't understand it. Just like if I say to my younger brothers, like, heavy, far out, spaced out, they just kind of look at me like, what are you talking about? Only Hare Krishnas use these words these days. So, and it's amazing how much people can become lost just by language. If you're speaking devotee talk and they can't relate to it, it may be a minor thing for you, but they really are turned off by this. So, I don't know if you've ever been around someone speaking a language you don't know at all. You just feel left out, and that's how they feel. So you have to be sensitive to that. Okay. Now, what's the nature of the staff? The devotees who staff the place love to reach out to others, love to care for others. This is the lost mystique of the Hare Krishnas. We should be loving to care for others. Caring for others means to identify with their problems, to take their anxieties upon your shoulders. This is the original preaching spirit of the Hare Krishna movement. This is what Prabhupada did, as Mother Lakshmi Muni was explaining. He wasn't afraid to be with the people and take their concerns and then direct them to a higher goal. So this is what's missing these days. So your staff has to have that feeling that my life is dedicated to giving Krishna to others. I'm patient, I'm loving, I'm caring. The staff can be made of persons who already have this ability, or especially ex-Sankirtan devotees whose bodies have worn out on doing Sankirtan or for whatever reason. They already are accustomed to building relationships with people. And also, you'll be surprised to find out that newcomers who come to Krishna consciousness in this way, they are the most expert at it because that's how they came. So therefore, they can staff in the future your operation. They can staff your establishment because they learned how to do it by having it done to them. That's most effective. Okay. Now, the staff is going to have to become accustomed to late night preaching. Someone asked about that the other day. It's the reality that devotees like to take rest early. I like to take rest at 8:30. But if I'm going to be doing any city preaching, it's not going to work. So what I recommend, a typical schedule, which I found works in most cities, you start at 6:30 because that gives people time to get home from work or get from their work to your place, and it's also getting near dinner time. From 6:30 to, let's say, 7:45, 8 o'clock, you have your program, yoga, seminars, Bhagavad Gita seminar, Ayurveda, whatever. And then at 8 o'clock is the dinner time. And everybody likes dinner at that time. For devotees, they never think of eating at 8 o'clock. But for non-devotees, it's normal. 8 o'clock is not late for dinner, especially after a nice yoga class. They're really hungry. And remember, no one else has ever thought of serving a sumptuous vegetarian dinner after a yoga class. No one else does this. So, 8 o'clock, there's dinner, and the guests like to hang around, talking to each other, talking to the devotees, the staff. And you want them generally out the door no later than 9:30, so you can close shop at no later than 10 o'clock. That's what city preaching's about. 10 o'clock is early for non-devotees. They'll stay up generally till 11:30 or midnight. But for us, we have to get on with our spiritual life. We're going to have to bend a little bit. So, okay, 10 o'clock, the door's shut, everything's closed down. Now, obviously, this is going to make it, unless the devotee is very physically strong, it's going to make it very difficult to get up for a Mangal Artik the next day. So, there can be various policies that, all right, you have to be there, let's say 5 a.m., or something like that, for chanting your rounds and for sure greeting the deities, Bhagavatam class, something like that. You have to have some, but to expect someone to do late night preaching and be there at 4:30 in the morning is not going to work for their health. They'll get run down after a while. So it's one of those inconveniences of urban preaching, that urban preaching means nights. Therefore, I don't recommend that the staff work every night. I do not recommend that. You have to have some time for yourself to recharge your batteries, because urban preaching is very grueling in terms of emotions. People are latching on to you. They want things out of you, and you have to be able to give of yourself. They see you as a wholesome, viable, successful person in terms of being a person. They want that. They want to draw it out of you. And so it's going to be very demanding. It can become very exhausting. I don't think a devotee can handle it every day of the week. Generally, I myself make rules like you can only be open 4 nights of the week, or if you have a big staff, they can rotate 5 nights a week. But you have to have some nights of being able to take rest early and go to the morning program or do lots of reading and chanting. Without the staff recharging their batteries through hearing and chanting, they're not going to last, because cities are contaminating. So one has to be practical, that unless you have a big staff that can rotate, don't try to be open every night of the week with the same devotees. They'll get worn out. Even the best devotees cannot handle it. It's too much, The Rajagun, Tamagun, and these non-devotees, at 10 o'clock at night, they're just starting to wake up, Have you noticed that? They really get enlivened. By the time midnight comes, they're full of energy, just like, we are at, greeting the deities time, 7 a.m. At midnight, that's when they really start to, get enlivened and become energetic. We can't keep up with that. They'll exhaust you. Someone had, yes? Well, we'd have to figure out something. I'm just giving you general rules of the thumb, obviously. We'd have to figure out something. But understand that urban preaching means austerity in this department, that people usually take rest midnight. We're not going to do that. We can bend a little bit, but not completely. So don't think you're going to do urban preaching from 5 p.m. till 7:30 at night or 8 o'clock at night, and that's it. You won't be able to reach the people that way. They just start coming to life. I can see at Soho in London, for example, when they have a Bhagavad Gita class at what time? 6 o'clock. Artik's at 7. That means they're finished at 7:30. And, then people are supposed to, they're starting to shut down. I can see at 7:30, these non-devotees are just starting to wake up and get all energetic and sociable, and and then but you're closing down at that time. They're just starting to come alive, and they want to talk at that time. So therefore, you're going to have to compromise a little bit and without ruining your spiritual life. But it's just one of those austerities of preaching in the city. Now, what else can you do? You can also organize outings, trips with your group of people. You just make it very casual. Hey, we're going on a trip to the forest. Just help us pay for the petrol and, for the prasad and, be nice food. And we're just going, we're going to Radha Desh to see the castle or, like that, so many outings you can come up with. And you'll be shocked. You think, wow, this is kind of, what's corny? How do you translate corny? This is kind of what's the French word? Corny means kind of, unsophisticated, kind of, unappealing, trite. Can't get it. Now, this is like for something like farmers or village people would do. It's too simple. Yeah, too simple. So, you might think that way, but remember, people are lonely. You'll be shocked at how they agree to do that. How they agree on a trip to the forest, a trip to the castle, a trip here or there, just because they're lonely, but they'll never say that. So if you can get a group of like 10 people, put them in a couple of vans and take them somewhere, charge them money also, you'll be shocked how happy they are to do that. Especially if they can talk to the other guests. If the non-devotees can talk to each other without the Hare Krishnas all the time getting in between, and wait. Did I tell you about, Mohini Murti? If you just let them be and then skillfully connect the whole thing to Krishna through prasad and building relationships, you'll be surprised. They like to do that. To get out of the city for a few hours is very appealing. So the staff is looking for every opportunity how to build relationships, knowing that everything will follow, even book sales. Now, I was mentioning how my policy is not to have books so much visible, maybe a few, but not to have book selling an overt or activity. But instead, I want it that the staff has to build relationships, and then they can make sizable sales of books. And this has proved to be very effective in set distribution. Some months, I know at one center, some months, in a city of 500,000, they sell 50 sets of Prabhupada's Bhagavatams a month, just because of building relationships. And it's so enlivening for the devotees when they see someone walk away with a whole set of Chaitanya Charitamritas or Bhagavatams. The feeling is indescribable. And it's also Prabhupada's desire. So that can all happen if relationships have been established. Okay, now, tomorrow we're going to be discussing the realities of caring for people today. I'll just give you a preview. In my work, I found, and I hope this doesn't scare you, you've got to be prepared to deal with this if you want to reach out to others. 50% of the persons coming who become interested in Krishna consciousness, no matter what economic level they're from, 50% need psychological counseling. It's true. There's such abuse and degradation and craziness these days. Now, don't think that this means that the Hare Krishnas only attract strange people. The whole population is like this these days. Statistics will show you that more people than ever are breaking down because of depression, stress. So, if you're interested in supplying Lord Chaitanya with full-time or congregational personnel to carry on Lord Chaitanya's work, you're going to have to deal with reality and recognize that 50% of the people need some counseling because of childhood horrors or this or that. And you'll also find, as Leeladhar Gupta can tell you, 70% need medical help. Why? They burn themselves out on drugs and illicit sex so much that by the time they're 21, they've got very little physical strength. You can ask Dr. Gupta. He'll tell you all about it. It's amazing. Older devotees in their 40s and 50s may not understand this because it wasn't this bad when we were teenagers. You're going to find that people coming to Krishna consciousness in their 20s have very little physical strength. What do you expect when you're having illicit sex since you're 12 years old? I already told you the first day, the statistics for England, 25% of 11-year-olds are having illicit sex. What does that do to your physiology by the time you're 20 years old? You're a wreck. You've been taking drugs since you were 12. It means your body never went through the teenage years and physiologically matured. The body never matured properly. You never got a chance to grow up right. Your body's a wreck. So, therefore, you see so many people coming to Krishna consciousness who are exhausted, weak. They can't do anything. So, therefore, I decided to deal with the problem from the very beginning. So we'll talk more about that. This is just a reality these days. What else will we talk about tomorrow? Yes, very important thing. What to do once you build a group of persons interested. What's their future going to be? The ashram or congregation or what? I'll tell you about something I've fabricated. It's called the Contemporary Vedic Ashram. It's not brahmachari, it's not grihastha. I'll tell you about that tomorrow. Creating a halfway situation for people. Taking your time with people, even a year or two before you hand them over to a temple, if that's where they're going. I'll tell you all about that tomorrow. And getting people to attentively chant Hare Krishna and read Prabhupada's books from the very beginning. Establishing that kind of culture of attentive chanting and reading Prabhupada's books as if every Hare Krishna does that. They don't know. So you can tell them what it means to be a Hare Krishna. And last point, to be a Hare Krishna means you chant all your rounds from beginning to end without interruption. All the Hare Krishnas do that. To be a Hare Krishna means to read Prabhupada's books 2 hours a day. All the Hare Krishnas do that. So if you start them off that way, they'll get a taste. And then what happens when the older devotees see that there's a sizable group of new people with these kind of standards, the older devotees become enlivened. Well, we can do it too. So anyway, these are points we'll talk about tomorrow. How to take people from the point of initially, when you meet them, to becoming full-fledged Hare Krishnas, whether in the Brahmacharya ashram. We'll discuss arrangements which are seen to be productive for ladies to do something in Krishna consciousness, rather than feel they're just, household maids or whatever, or future household maids. We'll be discussing what to do with people who aren't ready for any ashram. These are the most interesting subject matters. That'll be on the last day, tomorrow. All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.